My name is Inshalati. Welcome to also the book club. So today we're going to be doing my March wrap-up, where I talk about all the books that I read for the month of March and all the books that I actually did not finish. So if you like that, please like the video. Don't forget to subscribe and comment what books you read for the month of March. So this video is going to be split up into different sections because for some reason I'm very, very complicated like that. But so first up, we're going to be talking about all the books that I genuinely enjoyed and think that every single person on earth should be reading these books if you want to have a great life. Jokes. But yeah, and in this particular section, we're going to be talking about my 4-star reads. Next will be all the books that I thought were wasn't bad, wasn't good, but I still finished them and they get like a 3-star rating according to me. Afterwards, we're going to be talking about all the books that I reread for the month of March that I'd previously read in like previous years, but I figured this was a great month to reread them for either entertainment purposes or for me to make a video out of them. And last section of books will be all the books that I did not finish because life is too short for me to be finishing books that are sus and don't feel good to my soul. So yeah, if you want to stick around to hear more about that, let's go. So first on our list of books in this section is This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. It's a great novel. It is a great romance novel. And if you like a really, really well-written romance novel, which is really great at world building and character development, this is the book for you. This book is about a stay-at-home wife who finds out that her husband has been embezzling money from his company. And the person who finds this out, which is the accountant at his work, falls in love with his wife. So we essentially explore the story and find out how this relationship develops. And we then look into how these two individuals essentially navigate this new world where they have feelings for each other. And oh my gosh, it's amazing. So give it a try if you're looking for a really, really great swoon-worthy romance novel. Okay, the next book on our list is All the Lonely People by Mike Gale. This story is about an 80-year-old man who tells his daughter living in Australia that he has a thriving social life, when in fact that is not the case. So it all comes to a head when she says she'll be visiting him in a few months, and he now is hustling to essentially reignite this supposed social life that he's been talking about for the past 5 years, and basically navigates how all the random people he meets, he comes together with, and they start a group for All the Lonely People. This was such a great story because it doesn't tackle anything fascinating. It simply talks about the people in the world who are lonely and how other people like Hubert and his friends are trying to make that better for them in the city that they live in. It was a great story because it's rooted in so much reality that you can feel so connected to these characters as you keep reading the book. The story is told from the perspective of Hubert, and it interchanges between the past and the present so that we can see the life that Hubert did have earlier on in his life with his wife and his children, as well as the life that he has right now as an old man. So I think this was a really, really great book, probably my favorite book of the month. Now let's get to the books that I consider books on my March reads. So the first book on this list is a book by Dia Pereira, which was a psychological thriller, if I remember correctly, called Have You Seen Her? This book was interesting to me initially because this book, when you look at the cover, gives you the impression that the two characters are struggling through a rift. So we essentially tackle the story where we're trying to find out what actually caused this rift and what has happened. The story is essentially about one sister who goes missing and the other sister is trying to find her. The story was initially interesting. However, the execution wasn't that amazing. The issue that I found with this book and why I don't think it will ever be a more than 3.5-star read ever was simply because I could not connect to the characters because the backstory wasn't very, very intriguing, and it did not sell me on these two characters. I think there were too many time jumps for you to kind of feel connected to these people in any specific situation. So when something happened, it happened, and then you just moved on to like a few months or years later, and you're like, okay, do I like these people? Do I not like these people? You weren't given enough time to essentially judge those particular aspects of the book. So I wasn't really thrilled with it, but I wasn't really against it because there's nothing really wrong with it. It's what people who don't read thriller would think is a really, really good thriller. But as a person who reads quite a lot of thriller, it was a very meh type of thriller. And I wasn't as intrigued as I would have hoped to be, especially going off of the fact that the cover was very, very interesting to me. But hey, next on my list is A Good Mother, which, oh my goodness, what a disappointment. And unlike other books that I'll tell you were not really, really great books, this book I had such high hopes for. And you'd be like, oh, Nshalati, why did you have high hopes? And I will tell you, oh, the cover was great. It had a really great cover, and I had such high hopes because the cover gave off nothing, which meant I was going in blind and I could make all my judgments from what was in the book. I like a book that comes as a blank canvas. If you don't know me, one thing about me, I don't read like what books are about. I just go in based off of like the name of the book or the cover and read the book. It had all of those aspects. The issue was that it focused on too many things. This book was about 3 women who have 3 families, and they supposedly had problems. That's it. That's a very, very simple plot. However, the fact that the story was told from 3 different perspectives crowded the story that we were being told. We were told about so many people in different families that at some point I was like, who are we talking about? Like, which one of these ladies? Because at first I thought, okay, the story is about one lady. Then I realized, oh, it's about 2 ladies. Then it was about a 3rd lady. I was like, oof. Then one of them is speaking to people in the grave, like dead people that they've never met. Oof. I was like, we're doing too much for very little payoff. The emotional payoff was at a 0 because we weren't connected to any particular character, any particular family structure. We weren't particularly anything because there was so much that we were thrown with, but we couldn't sit with any of it for long enough for us to internalize and be like, oh, okay, I feel sorry for you. Oh, okay, I'm rooting for you. We couldn't root for them because we kept jumping around. So yet another story where we were just jumping around from one person to the next. Not a really big fan of that kind of structure, but I guess if you are interested in a book about people, you might like that kind of book, but it was too crowded based off of the fact that we had 3 perspectives. I don't think we needed 3 perspectives, but yeah, 3 stars from me for that one. So for this section, I reread a few books. Okay, it's like 7. But one of them is like one series of 6 books. So it doesn't count as like multiple in my own head. But the cool thing about that is that I made videos about both of these authors' books. So you can check them out. I've linked them in the description, and I hope I can link them up here too. So basically what the first series was called 6 Stories. 6 Stories is about a podcaster named Scott King who goes around interviewing 6 people to get their perspective on a case that already happened. Sometimes in the books we are solving the case, sometimes in the book we are not necessarily solving, but just like discussing the case and the merits of the case. It's a very, very interesting book because, or rather an interesting series, simply because we are introduced to a structure that I don't think I've ever come across ever in my entire reading journey, as it is done in a podcast fashion. So it sounds like an interview if you listen to it via an audiobook. It feels like people are being asked questions, they answer, they tell their perspective, and we gain the lay of the land. We gain what happened to the different people, we understand the crimes, and we just have a fun old time in a fake little true crime type of podcast setup. So I think that series is a really, really great series. I consider it one of my favorite all-time series, and I think you guys should check it out. Next book that I reread for the month of March is Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman. This book is about a couple who goes on honeymoon and find a bag with money, diamonds, a gun, and a flash drive. The story is intriguing and has you on your toes the entire time because Mark is an absolute and we hate him, but the rest of the story is really, really intriguing. And if you would be interested in trying to figure out how they essentially legitimize the money and the diamonds that they find in this bag, go and read this book. It's really, really amazing. Another thing that you need to consider with this book is that it will force you to challenge whether or not you as an individual would keep the bag with the money and the diamonds, because it's not every day people find money and diamonds, but what would you do? So in this section, we're going to be talking about all the books that I did not finish. The first book in this section is Wahala by Nikki May. This book, I believe, is about a group of 3 friends who introduce a 4th into their group. However, this 4th is trying to destabilize the group for some reason. I have a sneaking suspicion as to why she's doing it, but I'm not one to speculate. And because I'm literally like 40% into the book, I don't want to say I know exactly what happened, but the only reason I haven't actually finished this book is not because I did not like it, but rather I started this book very, very late in the month of March, and I'm technically still reading it. So if I do finish it, I'll come back and I'll let you know if it's a book worth your time. So the next book that I did not finish was called Before We Say Goodbye by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, which is essentially a book about a cute little cafe in Tokyo where people are allowed to go back into the past and speak to loved ones. And if you haven't seen my video on insane plot lines, go check it out. It's one of the books that I talk about there. The reason I did not finish it, despite the fact that this is technically a reread from like years prior, is that I think the series is very, very repetitive. By the time this particular installment in the series comes around, it is the 4th book. And given the fact that this book is structured as short stories, you have a situation where you're essentially rereading the same plot line over and over again. Sure, it's about different characters. They have different reasons for why they want to go back into the past, but like, by the 4th book, you're already done like 12 people going back into the past, and you're like, okay, so I knew what was going on in the book. So even when I was trying to make the video, I was like, oh, I just need to finish the first chapter and I'll know exactly what the story is about. Just like remind myself what the story was about. So it's not a bad premise. It's just quite repetitive. And if you like a short story form type of book, this is a really great book for you. I did not finish it for this month, but will I go back? Maybe in like the future. So last on my list was The Perfect Girlfriend. This cover is insane. So as mentioned before, I don't really read into what the story is about, but this is giving scary. It's giving the girlfriend's either absolutely batshit crazy or crazy boyfriend who's about to piss us off. So when I walked into this book, I was like, okay, I know nothing. Let's go into it. Then it hits all the same tropes as one would expect in a situation where a person is expected to be, quote unquote, the perfect girlfriend. So I was not interested in rereading a story where I essentially know where the story is going to go. You start off with the simple, move in with me, sell this, sell that, sell your car, be friends with my friends, isolate you from your family, and then you're like, oh, okay, I'm good. I don't need to know how this is gonna end. Somebody's gonna get killed. Full stop. I don't even need to read the story to tell you someone's gonna get killed. Probably the girlfriend. No, probably the boyfriend, because it's the story is not from his perspective. So I don't know. I wasn't willing to reread the same plot lines that I had read in the past. I was looking for something different, but they were hitting all the same beats and I wasn't a fan of that. So I DNF'd it. But yeah, if you're interested in reading about a person trying to be the perfect girlfriend or being forced into that particular role, I think this might be something you'd be interested in. But for me, no. So overall, I think this month was a really, really great reading month. I got through quite a lot more books than I had anticipated. If you had seen my March Reads list video that I put up earlier last month, you would realize that, yeah, I went over the limit, but I had such a great time reading all the different books. If you were to ask me which 3 books I would recommend, I would definitely say This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan for our lovers in the room. Secondly, All the Lonely People, amazing, 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 amazing. Probably my absolute favorite book of the month. And last book that I would recommend would be one of my rereads, which is Something in the Water by Steadman. I think all 3 of those would be really, really great books for you to try out from my list. And yeah. Anyway, don't forget to like the video if you liked it. Don't forget to leave a comment letting me know what books you have read for the month of March. If you liked any of the books that I talked about, let me know which books you are interested in reading. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Yeah, okay, bye.